Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you for coming to the April meeting of the Parks and Recreation Board. Just kind of up front, we're going to do things a little bit out of order tonight. Claire has to leave a little bit early, and Mary may be coming a little bit late. So bear with me as we kind of walk through this. I guess we'll go through the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which was in January. Are there any motions to approve those minutes? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. We're going to actually jump into public participation first tonight. So is there any public participation? No? Okay.
You're right here.
All right. And we have with us tonight the Radnor Conservancy, and they had asked for some time to give us a little bit of background about what they do, what they've got going on, and some thoughts they had. So we're going to give them a little bit of time here at the beginning of the meeting. So ladies, you're on.
Okay. Hi. So, hi.
Hi.
Just walked in. Hi.
No problem.
Take a breath. Hi, guys. Some of you might not know who I am. I'm Laura Luker from the Radnor Conservancy, and Gretchen Grobel is my executive director. And I believe that you got a bunch of information about us and a bunch of packets to kind of peruse before this. So I don't want to read through them all because I figured you are already up to speed. But the purpose is, first of all, just to introduce ourselves and to let you know that we are very much involved in what you guys are doing as a subcommittee for the township, and that we also have interests in the open space of Radnor to be able to help you consider some of the options and things that we see that is needed to be done in the township parks, primarily their open space parks. So in terms of who we are, I think you guys all know now. I'm not going to go through that. I also provided you with a list of programs and events that we're having coming up, which is pretty exciting, that we have a lot going on. A few of the things we've already done. We've already done 2 vine invasive cleanups in 2 of your parks, one at Hartford Park and one at Philippone. And all I can say is we took a nibble. Yeah. You know, it's really, it's so beyond our capacity to handle what is needed to be done. But we're trying, and we're trying to engage our community to become more aware of what their parks are, you know, the condition of them and what is needed. We got some people, not as many as you would think, we would like to have more people. And a really cool one is happening this Saturday at Skunk Hollow, and that is the Darby Creek is the cleanup.
Darby Creek Valley Association is sponsoring, I think, 34 cleanup sites along the Darby Creek. So, and one that we're involved in is at Skunk Hollow. So kind of we pull off at the maintenance area where the township guys approach the mulch fields, and you can park there, and it's a big cleanup there on Saturday from 9 to 12.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go through the whole list here, but there are a variety of really interesting things going on, hikes, and for going through the woods. There's also tree identification, there is ephemeral identification, there's birding, and two last things. Something that you might not know, but in Skunk Hollow, we did this last year, and I've done it again. It started last weekend. Throughout the Willows, down into Skunk Hollow, and to those two parks are small identification signs of the ephemeral wildflowers that are coming and going, and the signs kind of come and go as the plants come and go. And it's a nice little thing for people to walk around and say, oh, you know, first of all, most people don't even take the time to look at anything except race through. And so this way it slows people down, maybe gets their attention that there's something more interesting and in there. So
But
that's
last year we had gotten a lot of public feedback, like, oh wow, who put those signs up? It's great because I've always wanted to know what these spring flowers are.
All right.
And so Laura did it. She took the initiative to do it, and so we did it again this year. So
Yeah. Well, Mary Coe, if she was here, Mary
She's
and
the
I
queen.
were the ones who we were walking together, and I said, "What do you think?" And a couple years passed over, and I said, "Mary, I think we should do it." And so we did it last year, and as you see, it was successful. And then lastly, we will not be having our race for open space, which is something that, as a board, we decided we had some complications with. Well, I don't know. It's just
no, we didn't have
no
complications. It's just it's a ton of work, and
Right.
and we just don't have that much turnout. So I think we'd like to do it again when the trails, the Ardrossan trails, are ready to be opened. So
Yeah, it's just a lot of work for a small group like us. And then, moving on. So, we were here before a year ago, and we told you our thoughts about the conditions of the parks, and the invasive vines and the invasive underscrub, and how it is beyond, it is really an issue. We also talked about a sustainable stewardship type of program that the parks can be done, and then a volunteer program. So from that letter, I put together this goal list, I guess you could call it, which I really, this is what I want to quickly just talk to you about, and then you guys can kind of ask me some questions. But first of all, I would like to create a steering committee. We talked about this last time. Mary was really interested in it, and Charles, you were too. Chuck, you were too. And you know, we'll see how it happens. But my goal is there's a bunch of different entities in here, and one of them that is not in here, and that would include you, Sarah, because I would like your thoughts too. But to get one of these from each of these groups. And one of them would be a Board of Commissioners person. And I'm assuming you're oversee Parks and Rec?
Not oversee, I'm the liaison.
Liaison. Is there any other Parks and Rec? I mean, Jake.
And
Luke.
And Luke.
Oh, wow, you guys have 3?
Yeah, then, never mind.
But Shade Tree has nobody. Okay. And then Township staff, we'd like Tammy, Public Works, who, you know, I'm not quite sure if Steve is an interim or
No,
how.
Steve McNellis.
He is it, okay. Forestry, John, engineering,
Steve.
To create a steering committee for a summit meeting. That doesn't mean this group has to continue. It just means we need to get our thoughts in. And we can create an agenda for this to really understand the needs and how to go forward. Because what I would really like to see happen here in Radnor is a Radnor Park stewardship plan. be just, you know, it's going to be bit by bit because it's a big chunk to what we're trying to do. But first, create the steering committee, schedule a summit meeting, list out the parks, assess the priority parks with the committee, assign people on the steering committee to a park who they might be more affiliated with, get maps of the parks of these priorities, and then walk through the parks to get a basic survey, and have professionals of land management people with us. John would be definitely one of them. Gretchen and I were just at the PALTA conference today. It's going on all weekend. And I just took a whole thing on mapping, and it was all about stewardship. There's just so much.
What was the conference?
PALTA,
Pennsylvania Land Trust Alliance.
which a lot of Parks and Recs people were there from other municipalities from all over Pennsylvania.
It's a great conference.
It's
And they're
so
sponsoring
great.
the EAC conference this weekend. I don't think anybody from Radnor is going.
Really,
I mean, it
yeah.
needs to.
So the PALTA Conservancy has gone, I mean, every year for how many years?
20.
Yeah, and it's great. You meet people, you see people. The technology has just, it's incredible what's being done with these land trust organizations and with these various government organizations. So we need to hone in on maybe who can come and help us with this. I have ideas. I'm sure Township has ideas. Create a timeline for management goals, create a budget, which is a big deal, and then determine what projects can be scheduled. And some of these projects will need to be contracted out because there is no way to get what's needed to be done by me or Gretchen. And it's pretty much who shows up.
Or township staff.
Or township staff, yeah. So ideally, once the major work is in the specific parks, would be to be given to the Radnor residents and to a supportive group, like a friends group, that will have a affiliation and would like to take over this particular stewardship of these various parks. Ithan Valley Park is a very good example. They have their friends group, and they're very active and they're very involved in their planning of what needs to be done.
Do we have any others, Laura, do you know of?
Well, Hartford Park has their friends group, but it's really dog oriented, and I'm not quite sure.
I'm not aware
That's-
of any others.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure though that that's really it's a great start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they really see anything other than the green patch that their dogs go around.
The spoil.
Right. But the Friends of Radnor Parks volunteer program, which is kind of what we've started with our little invasive group, I'd like to see the township being able to supply the basic supplies, including, you know, the trash bags, the gloves, the compost, and the mulch when available, hand tools and rakes and shovels we can get donated. We also have a whole set of things that
Well, that's
that's
Valley
Valleys.
Parks.
We go back and forth with them. You know, there is a trailer, at least there was at one point, that the police department was kind of not using, and we could refurbish that to be set up to be our tool shop.
Where do you
It would
see-
park here.
Right here at the township
Mhm.
building?
There's one below the building.
And it would be signed out according to wherever the cleanup of the weekend or the day was, and that would be then carried over there. And so this is a collaboration with the, you know, Public Works. It's a big, you know, piece of it. And they would help clean up take away the stuff that was pulled out. And then work schedule would be, you know, right now it's through us. We do a whole online advertising, and we also could do it through the township, through advertising there. And that's a big deal in itself, because you gotta line everything up, you gotta make sure you have waivers, you gotta make sure you've got waters, you gotta make sure you got first aid equipment, so you have to have the sharpened tools, you know, you gotta be food, you gotta thank them. It's a whole nother process. So we've started to do this in a very minimal, you know, what we can handle, and we'd like to see it grow. So that's the vision. I'm asking you guys to commit to a summit meeting and to help me put together a steering committee by reaching out to people and getting them to, you know, become involved in this. And I also really want you to think seriously about the future of this project and how necessary it is to really start to work on this and not just think this is a small little task. These woods, these parks are in danger, and the trees are being strangled, and there's no way for saplings to get up because of the invasives that have completely covered their ability to grow saplings to become bigger trees. So we are losing that. And I don't know if you guys go into Skunk Hollow or utilize your parks, but there are a lot of people who do, and it would be a real shame for your children to not have what is available right now. So I encourage you to really take some action, and we're here to help.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that to us, and I will commit from this board that we will make one person available. I'll ask for volunteers, and if nobody volunteers, I will be happy to come to when you put together a summit meeting, you'll have somebody from this board, if it's me or somebody else, to represent us at that steering committee meeting.
Great, thank you.
So, just so you have that. And I just want to give the folks here a couple minutes to
Yeah.
ask questions or whatever, so Claire, yeah.
I just have one question, real
Yeah.
quick question, Laura. Do you have an idea about what a budget would look like and where, sorry, I don't want to ask a big question, but are you talking about a budget that comes from the township, connected with the conservancy, or are we raising money, or what's our all of the above?
All of the above, absolutely.
Are we looking for grants?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And a lot of this is way over my head. I mean, today I was hearing things that are, you know, I'm starting to get the language, I'm not trained in this, I certainly have never, you know, this is all new, but there are organizations out there, nonprofits, that could probably do a preliminary survey for free. That would give us just a baseline. Then you would need to go into a full assessment.
Which is like a forest or a woodland stewardship plan, a forest stewardship plan.
Okay.
So, and you could, I mean, we had talked about this before. I mean, it might make sense to, you know, take your two largest parks, Skunk Hollow and the Willows, and do a stewardship plan for those parks, and then basically you could model what they have advised on those two parks and tailor it to your smaller parks that don't have as much acreage, but probably have similar problems.
So a plan, for assessment plan, it could be anywhere from 20 to 35. I don't know. I honestly don't know. $1,000 for a plan.
For the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't know exactly to what level that would be. John Hoshback, who is really the forester, who he's only paid 12 hours a week. He really, we all should be promoting him to have more hours. It is just inexcusable.
It's gonna happen.
I hope
Yeah,
so.
he does a lot.
He does so much, and we need so much more. It's just, right now, with what's coming down the pike with that. Anyway, and then it's just taking it as we can.
Okay, thanks.
So,
I just didn't know
yeah.
if you had kind of a
But so,
sense of.
Jim?
so the grants and
Chuck?
things like that will happen too. They have to.
Anything from you guys, Howard, Chuck?
I guess, are there other municipalities that we would be able to kind of look at that has something like this in place? That would be of value to me.
Yeah.
I'm also eager to volunteer
Yeah.
with this.
So Chuck, the Lower Merion does have this whole program that I just spoke about.
Okay, is there
And,
a connection that we can make to
Oh, yeah.
talk with them?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
That would be very valuable to me, because what I see is, we don't want to have overlap between what the township does and what this group's planning to try to do or to do. So
I think we do.
when I say overlap,
Okay.
I mean doing the same things. We want to be.
Right,
We
right, we
want-
want to work together on this.
And to find out what we're actually
Chuck,
doing.
there's really little risk of that.
I know, exactly.
Okay, but anyway, just to find out what the push from the township, because we had talked about in the past, Radnor basically cut the grass.
Right.
They cut the grass in the parks, and they've improved some of that. And so what I would have to find out is what's the charge that they've been given from the commissioners as far as what type of a maintenance of the park system do we?
Nothing, because I think the commissioners are trying to get charged from this department, this committee, to know what's important.
Well, we're an advisory committee.
No?
That's not true, but.
Okay.
That's fine. And Marty, I'm gonna ask you if we could table this for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Because Claire's leaving at 7:15. and
That's
no,
okay.
I hope you'll stay, because I don't
I
wanna,
will.
I wanna finish the
Yeah, no
conversation.
problem.
Thank
But I
you.
wanna get through, one issue before Claire leaves.
Yeah.
And then we can jump back in if you don't mind.
Perfect.
Great.
No problem.
Thank you. I just want to jump in this before Claire has to leave at 7:15. I wanted to bring this board up to speed. Bill, we did not have meetings in February or March. And we had actually been asked to meet in February with the group that is proposing to, and has a lease agreement in front of the Board of Commissioners to run the Willows and have a program going over there. And I had declined to have that meeting because I didn't think that we had enough information to have that meeting, and I felt that the process was far enough down the line that it didn't make sense for us to jump in, especially given our background with the Willows over the years. Bill Renfrey and I sat down with Lisa and with Bob and with Tammy on Tuesday afternoon and had a meeting about Parks and Rec. You know, very frank and open conversation, and discussed really what we saw was a lack of goals and direction from the Board of Commissioners. Jim was on the phone for 10 or 15 minutes with us, and we just expressed and asked for some direction from the Board of Commissioners in terms of what they see as our role and what they'd like us to be doing to provide us with some direction for this current calendar year, because you know, I don't think we've had a lot of that in the past year or two. So we had a probably 45-hour meeting discussing that. Lisa was very open to our comments. We had some back and forth and some good, you know, productive conversation. And she promised that she was going to, I think at the next Board of Commissioners meeting, have that as a topic where she would interact with the other commissioners and find out. And we said to her, you know, it doesn't matter. We're all here because we care about our community, we care about our parks, and we want to help and add value. If they want us to just be stewards of parks and to meet quarterly and report on conditions, and come back and let us know that. If they want us involved in substantive issues like the Willows, et cetera, then let us do that ahead of them doing it and give us some direction on that type of thing. if they don't see there's value of this board, then they should let us know that, and we can disband that board, and we're okay with any of that. That was a message that we passed across to them. So I want to give you guys 5 minutes on what that conversation entailed, and give you a chance to ask questions of me, and/or have some discussion about it, because Tammy wanted to cancel a meeting this month, but I thought it was important that we get at least who could attend together, so I could tell you kind of what's happened the last couple of months and why it's happened, and give you guys a chance to have some conversation about it. And Jim, I don't know if you want to, because you were on the phone for 15 minutes, so I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
No,
Please
I
do.
would agree it was frank, and I would agree that it was necessary. So I mean, everything else you said was correct.
So when is Lisa planning on?
She said that she said that they had a conversation, John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, conversation about Carfac. Carfac disbanded about a month and a half or 2
No,
months ago.
Carfac didn't disband. The entire Carfac group resigned.
Yes, well, okay, that's
It's different.
Okay, then.
He's right, you're right.
And we,
Okay.
at this,
Thank you, John.
we have now
So,
advertised for
They had
members.
a meeting about Carfac. According to Lisa, they discussed it at the Board of Commissioners meeting this past Monday. And she said that she'd like to try and have a similar discussion about Parks and Rec with the commissioners a week from this coming Monday.
I was just
The
curious about the
23rd,
time
yeah.
frame. So,
23rd.
and then we'll hear back.
Yeah, I assume that we'll hear back from them in terms of what their thoughts are. I don't know whether they'll make progress in that first meeting or have to kick it down the road a little bit, but I just felt that, and Bill and I had a conversation about it, that it didn't make sense to put Tammy through a lot of work to have these meetings, and pull people away from the busy schedules to have meetings when we weren't dealing with anything of any real substance. So, and Howard, I know, I apologize for you at your first meeting here, and it's kind of what's going on, but we asked for some direction, and hopefully we'll get some direction from the board. So I just wanted to make sure we got to that before Claire had to leave. And John, happy for you to add anything to that if you'd like.
Well, I haven't talked to Lisa since she met, but there are a couple things where we really need the Parks Board, and that is, all these projects we're now doing. So we have 3 different trail projects moving forward, and soon, hopefully, we'll begin the planning on Fenimore, and we need you folks to be part of that. Our staff is at the minimum levels. I've been campaigning for 4 years now to actually increase staff. And as you can imagine, I don't get a lot of sympathy. One thing Bob is talking about is having a position of project manager or manager of projects, let's call it. And I really like that idea because we have so much going on. I mean, we literally outsourced, we expanded Bob, CTC, Campbell Thomas, their contract because we didn't have staff to support the revisions to the grant for the grants for the trails. Now, fortunately, we did pass that bond issue a couple years ago, so we have the money to be able to do that. But I would much rather spend that money on a trail than I would on, people. And that's, so we need your help on that. Bob is coming to the meeting on the 23rd. There's a grant round, it's called C2P2, Claire,
Yep.
is that it?
Yep.
And that will be submitted before the 23rd, but at the 23rd, they'll just get the commissioner's endorsement letter. But Bob's going to give a presentation on that project. The Friends of the Willows, or whatever that group's called, has had some dramatic changes in the last 3 weeks.
Can you tell us? It's not called the.
It's the Willows Parks Preserve.
Yeah,
Park Preserve.
well, for one thing, Christina and
Colleen are out.
Colleen are out. And the gentleman who gave the $1 million is actively participating now. They formed a board. They have their 501, I believe, or they've applied for their 501.
They don't have it as of Tuesday.
They don't
we're
have
told.
Yeah. So, and they've got a new plan they want to bring, and I'm sure, Chris, you know, I've pushed constantly to involve the Parks Board. Because, as I said at that dinner, this is where the good ideas come from. They don't come from the commissioners. Sometimes they come from staff, but our boards are where we get it from. Because you guys are out, you're at a ball game with your kids, you talk to 10 other people. You know, over the years, that's where every good idea has come from. And I certainly would not agree with dissolving this board at all. But I completely understand your frustration,
So-
having been there.
So we'll see what comes out of the meeting, but.
But one other thing, Shade Tree, because they were so upset with what almost happened recently, has really dug in. And I think they got authorization to buy some software that'll allow them to, and that would work with what you're talking about with the tree surveys and all that stuff. Matt Golis, who is actually on planning, but he's their representative of Shade Tree, and if you remember, Jane Golis was on the founding board of that group, has really dug in with both hands. So we see some things coming out, so maybe we have an opportunity now to turn things around.
A lot of it is of communication as well. So
Yeah.
now that I'm the liaison on Shade Tree and Matt's on planning and Shade Tree, we see that's really what I think the board, personally think what the board needs is to hear from all of us. And so we're not doing overlapping
Right,
with
right.
work, but we're overlapping with communication. And I think.
And one last piece, we got a really rough estimate from John about how much money do we need to spend on trees. And the number was way in excess of $25 million.
Yeah.
Now, you know that's not going to happen.
Right.
But how about $1 million a year or $2 million a year? I mean, the folks that have been working in Ithan, it's taken them 5 years. But I think the invasives are pretty well under control over there, as well as can be expected. So,
You know, the John Hosbeck's Emerald Ash, he was working with those numbers. Those aren't off.
no,
Where I grew up, they just dealt with this whole issue 7 years ago. And that was 7 years ago, and you're talking at least that much.
right.
So, I mean, we've been trying to tell Shade Tree and the.
Well, John actually did a draft plan for us, and it's
Yeah.
not gone anywhere.
Right. So it's gonna,
But John, I don't mean to chime in.
Yeah.
The dysfunction of the board
Yeah, that does have something to do with it.
is a
doesn't it?
very large umbrella over everything right now.
Yes, I totally agree.
Excuse me, the $25 million number for trees, what is that for?
Mostly going around, trimming, pruning, taking down dead stuff, planting new stuff. And these are only township trees, if you
Yeah,
will. So
we're
that's
not talking
township, the right-of-ways and the parks.
residents.
$25 million?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Most people don't remember, just because Chuck probably does, because he's old like me.
Thanks, John.
25 years ago, we had a tree crew as part of Public Works. And it was like a 5-man crew, if I remember correctly.
You
John
had-
Stauffer was the foreman.
Right.
And they were
Big
looking for
climbers.
ways to cut the budget, so they rolled it into Public Works. And honest, you
That
can
was
point
it.
right to that
Yeah.
as when these problems started growing. Because those guys were in the trees, pruning. They were taking care of invasives, pulling vines off.
And they worked from the parks. They
Yeah.
were located in the parks.
Oh, yeah.
And that was their sole job. They took care of parks. They didn't do
They
other
they
public
didn't get
works.
put on the trash truck
Right.
because somebody didn't
Right.
show up
Right.
today. And.
25 years ago?
Yeah,
Mhm.
20, 25.
15 then, Claire?
5. She was 5 then.
Well, it's a pendulum thing, you know. The township went into reaction when we had the whole Bay Shore scenario, and it was cut, save, and we are now at that bottom of that pendulum where we are now, we have no structure.
Okay,
No
well,
funds.
I just wanted to give these folks an
Yeah.
update. I know Claire's got to jump, so whenever you have to leave, great, no problem there. You guys have any questions, always feel free, obviously, to take
I just have a
phone call, et cetera.
couple comments on this
Yeah,
piece,
please.
because this goes way back. I first served on the Parks Board, I think back in the 90s.
Yeah,
And we had major league issues to the point that we were all going to resign at that point too, because nobody was paying attention to us, nobody was listening to us, we would come up with recommendations, it was nothing, it's very simple. I think the issues that we have, because the plan that you put together, or you talked about, that's what the parks, it should be done, that's what we
Right.
should be doing,
Right.
okay?
That's what-
So, we have to look at if that's something that we're interested in doing, but the powers that be are not interested in moving in that direction. If they are or if they're not, I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's so much they're not interested, it's a money issue, I think.
Well, I
Part.
think part of it could be a money issue, and part of it could be a communication issue, that they don't quite understand what the people of Radnor would like to see their money spent on. As someone who raises taxes every year as a school board, people want to see good schools here. If the people want to see the parks in good conditions, it costs money. So that's either something that the people want or something that they don't. They push bonds out for buying more public land, which is great, but we need to maintain what we have.
Well, you hit it down the head right there. As a township, we've spent a lot of money on open space in the last 10, 15 years. And at the same time, we're cutting down staff.
Right, so we're
and
giving
money
them
to
more
take
to
care of
do.
all those
Nah.
things. So,
But open
But
space,
we've also spent,
if it
taken out money for
goes,
the
it's
park.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta get it
well,
when
I'm
you
just
get
saying,
it.
I'm not saying what's right or
Yeah.
wrong. What I'm just saying
Yeah.
is, that's really what's happened.
Yeah.
Well, now we
haven't
have to
had the money do
refocus
those
on what,
things.
on what we want to do, where our
There's
efforts need to be.
there's a false narrative about tax increases, I believe. I mean, several years ago, Bob wanted to outsource trash. I went out and door knocked, I probably hit half the houses in my ward. To a person, everybody said, raise my taxes. We have our own trash guys, they're great, they take care of us. I mean, our trash guys are wonderful. You don't see trash laying on the ground next to the trash cans after they've gone. And I think it's the same thing with parks. I think people, the first reason people probably move to Radnor is the school system. But the second reason is the quality of life because of parks and programs. And we wouldn't even have the programs we have today, except we finally changed another false narrative, which was sponsorships. I mean, Chuck, when we were on the board in the 90s, remember we had Coca-Cola wanted to build a
People were bitching.
facility out here. We don't do that in Radnor. We changed that, and now all those festivals.
We don't build cell towers around either, right?
No,
Right.
that's a legal issue, Chris. Don't get.
Well, we'll get, now's not time to debate that. We can
Right.
debate that at a
But
different time.
anyway,
So
and-
let's get back on topic if we
Right.
could.
So anyway, I think we have an opportunity.
Well,
I
I
really
think so
do.
too. I think
We'll
it's
see.
an opportunity to say, what are we here for? What are we going to do? Are we contributing, or are we just here to have meetings?
Well, that's, I'm hoping to get some feedback from Lisa after her meeting in a couple of weeks, and then we'll respond accordingly. You
Yeah.
guys are pressing us, so.
Because I think the schools could possibly be part of the solution here. For instance, we have the little park, Midland Avenue on my middle school cleanup, planning,
Yeah.
doing this, doing that. I mean, we
Well,
have
the best
horticultural.
example is Radnor Elementary with
Yeah,
the environmental
exactly.
park right
So
there.
there's some partnership pieces that we could put together. I think it's a good idea to use the people who are out there. Just off the top of my head, we have a lot of people from Radnor that started lawn services, that we might be able to put together some kind of a day where where they would volunteer and come out and do some. Aberdeen, we had the Demetrises, a lot of guys who I know, they're a bit younger than me, but they have done very well with that. I'm sure they would give back to the community if approached in the right way. So I would look forward to being involved with it. And once the commissioners realize that it's either focus on something
Right.
that we can
Right.
do and let us do it.
Good.
Yep.
Laura, do you have anything you want to continue with on your side?
Well, for two things, if things go like this, we would totally resource that, of getting the landscape companies, tree companies to do
yeah.
And that's some, we've talked to tree companies about that, and they're in it. But there has to be a head organization of it all.
Right, well, we have to see whether they're willing to do that, because like, for instance, the publicity, or whatever you want to call it, just suppose we had somebody that sponsored, say, South Devon Park, and they came in and they did some work on them, say Aberdeen,
Right.
forget what he's called. But anyway, post a little sign up that says,
Yeah.
we sponsored this, or, you know how they have the highway cleanup signs and things like that? Who knows, maybe something like that would be able
Yeah.
to get some people to come in, and we just have to make sure that the township agrees with that, and they're not doing work that our guys would be doing anyway. But yeah, I think it has merit.
Did you talk about the township cleanup that's happening on May 12th?
I did not yet,
You know
because
about
I
that,
haven't
right?
gotten into the reports
Oh, okay,
yet, so
okay.
unfortunately,
I just
we'll
didn't know
not be able to
that.
make
All right.
reports, but,
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
If you guys have any other questions, you can always email us and ask us.
Okay.
So,
Great, thank you.
yeah, thanks.
And please keep us posted if you get a meeting with that steering committee. One or two people from this board, I'm sure, would want to be involved.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we won't have a recreation report tonight because Tammy's not here. We won't have a Public Works Department report tonight because Public Works isn't here. I do want to take a minute to recognize Mark Dominic, who retired since the last time we had a meeting.
Did a
Retired in
fantastic job.
February, and he worked for his township for a long time. 40 years maybe?
I don't think he was that
Not
long,
long,
but
but 30.
Long time.
And, as his staff got smaller and smaller, he continued, I think, to do a good job. And so I know he's not here tonight, but I would just thank him publicly because, he did a good job of keeping things together. And I don't know about all of you, but you could tell in all these snow events we had in March, when you left Radnor Township, you knew you left Radnor Township because the roads here were always better than the roads in our adjacent townships.
Yeah.
So they worked hard and did a good job. So I just want to make sure I made a mention of that.
And if you were out there, Chris, Mark Dominic was driving a truck, and so was Steve McCall.
Oh, yeah, I saw him, yeah. So,
Do we ever, as a board, park board, do we ever honor people, or do we have the ability to do something like that for Mark? Recognition, or something that maybe the commissioners could give him on the behalf of the Park and Recreation Board, and then at a public township meeting, maybe John or somebody could.
I mean, we've done that for several other retirees.
Yeah, I think that would be nice, and then Chris, maybe you could go and present it on our behalf.
let me ask about that, Chuck, because I don't know the answer to that, but I will reach out to Bob and ask him about that.
Yes, or the commissioners are actually
Right.
pretty good.
Well, I said, we've done
You've done
several
that before,
retirees
right?
now, we've given them,
I think that would,
and he's got enough time, man. That's for
got
damn
enough
sure.
time, and maybe we
Well,
can.
it's not just time,
We
it's
can get him to volunteer.
dedication and care.
But I mean,
right.
we could get him
That's a
maybe
good
to
idea.
volunteer to come in and do some work for us too.
He might be looking for something to do.
He might be willing to get on the committee.
We talked about it.
We already talked about it. Okay.
So you have in your packet tonight the Radnor Township Spring Summer Activities Guide. I know the extravaganza at Villanova was canceled due to weather this past Sunday. I think it's scheduled for Sunday the 22nd. And I'll just encourage our board, whenever you can do, Tammy and her staff work very hard to put these events together. They get sponsors so that it really doesn't cost the township money. as somebody now has grandchildren, I even appreciate these events even more because there's so many good events in Township. So please talk them up with your neighbors, your friends, et cetera, and if you get a chance, take a look through here. Laura, you mentioned the cleanup day. What's the date on that, do you know?
May
I believe
12th.
it's May 12th.
May 12th?
This was Matt Marshall brought up, he wants to put together he wanted a pilot cleanup for township-wide, and they narrowed it down to the gateway of Radnor Gateway.
Aberdeen to, Aberdeen to Springville.
It's Radnor Chester
Right.
to
Springville.
Aberdeen
To Springville.
To Springville. Okay, so 8 to 12, they'll have a whole bunch of different people helping out
Mhm.
from the township, and
We're gonna try to help the universities and some
Yeah.
of the businesses.
Yeah.
or the-
it's just clean, it's not vine clean, it's not that, it's just
Paper.
paper, garbage.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I'm flipping through here to see if it's something. if
It's on the back, oh, no, it isn't. I thought it was on the back of Tammy's.
But there's a lot of great information in here, so please, flip through that. John, anything from the commissioners?
Well, that was the big thing. The other thing that happened is several, both Jake Abel and Matt Marshall brought up the issue of smoking in parks. They were talking mostly like people standing around the playground when their kids were on the playgrounds or at sporting events. And they both felt that it was inappropriate for people to be smoking there. So I said I would bring it to you folks to get your opinions. We also asked the Board of Health to weigh in. And the Board of Health, their immediate reaction is they're against smoking. They would be happy if we banned smoking in Radnor Township. But they are actively doing the scientific approach. They're looking at studies that have been done on outdoor air concentrations. The other area that was of concern was North Wayne Avenue with the outdoor dining. That sometimes if smoke bothers you, you can't walk up North Wayne Avenue.
And when the doors open.
Yeah.
And the smoke can come in.
Yeah. And all our restaurants are non-smoking, and that's a voluntary program.
Wait a minute. So they would want to ban smoking for people walking on North Wayne Avenue?
Or sitting at the outdoor restaurants. Essentially make North Wayne Avenue non-smoking. So anyway, they've asked for some feedback on that from the Parks Board and from the Board of Health.
Were there a lot of complaints about smoking by community members?
Hey,
Okay.
I'm just the messenger.
Is that anything that any of the three of you have any interest in discussing?
Well, that piece, I mean, you're not allowed to smoke on any public property that the school owns. I mean, there is precedent.
How about, has the school board taken a position yet on vaping?
We have a policy against vaping,
Yeah.
so yeah, vaping
Okay.
would be similar to smoking. It's also a ban.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did upgrade our policies.
Because that was part of the discussion, and so was smokeless tobacco, chewing. The poor kid that falls down where somebody spit out tobacco.
Okay. Well, I could see
But
a
anyway.
conversation about public-owned property and the
Yeah.
non-smoking piece. The North Wayne piece is a little bit of a stretch for me. And
How would you suggest enforcing that?
the what? I would just have the policy.
Signs?
I mean, I'm not sure if it's even posted in the schools, but I know you can. I mean, our employees, I just saw one today. They walk across the street. I'm not real happy with that either. They walk across the street and smoke across the street. I mean, it's done, it's enforced.
Well, Mainline Health has a total.
Yeah, I mean,
no
there are
smoking.
work sites that are that way, so it's something worthwhile
In fact,
possibly.
I emailed Paul Eucoulis
Mm-hmm.
to ask him about it, because he's the personnel VP
Oh, okay.
at Mainline Health nowadays.
Yeah.
And he served on the Parks Board years ago, on the
Mhm.
school board.
Yeah.
He was the one also that we threatened, both of us. We were the members that threatened to resign because
Yeah.
the guys weren't paying any attention to us.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Cold Turkey?
No.
Dick Butkus was in it. Every time somebody tried to smoke, he punched them out. That could be a way to enforce it.
Well, the truth is, a lot of those kinds, social things like that are enforced based on complaints. Yeah.
Well, it could be if you had the ability, if somebody's smoking and my grandchildren are over there, I could walk over and say, you know, this is a non-smoking
Right,
park.
exactly.
So, and a bit of peer pressure kind of a thing. We don't smoke around kids. I mean,
Yeah.
it damages them,
Yeah.
or something like that. Hopefully that you'd be able to do that. But the one thing, is the school board report yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You're next.
I'll wait.
All right.
I do have a question. The no smoking policy in Radnor Township, could you elaborate on that a little bit? Because we've got a AA group that comes to our church. And right outside there, we see the buds
Oh, yeah, they
and
smoke a
all
lot.
of that. So,
Oh, no.
Radnor
I said
Township does
Radnor-
not
Radnor
have a
school-
no smoking policy.
okay.
It was the school properties. We have it
Okay.
on the school properties.
school
You're not allowed to
properties.
smoke on school properties.
Yeah, it's been, it was adopted by the restaurants voluntarily, essentially so that we didn't
Right.
pass a rule against it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, your churches could actually.
Sure.
But,
Church can ban it.
yeah, the church could.
Can,
But then you might
can
not have
Radnor
them keep
Township,
coming.
do we even have the authority to
Okay.
tell
I mean,
people that
yeah.
they can't smoke on a public property? Is that
On
regulated?
public property, yes. On a public street,
Like on a
maybe not.
public sidewalk, like is that something that Radnor Township even has the right to enforce?
Probably not on private property, which most sidewalks are part of private property. But in the park,
No, I understand
Yeah.
the parks, yeah,
Mhm.
and this building and the
Yeah.
school and all,
Right,
I'm
right,
just, somebody
right.
mentioned
No,
North Wayne
I-
Avenue, and I'm thinking, I'm not even sure how you would enforce that.
Well, if they had outside dining and you want
That's
to
how you
talk
do
to
it.
you want
Yeah.
to talk to the people that own that and say, would you like to voluntarily move it to the piece in front of your,
Yeah.
the front of
I
your
would,
restaurant?
I would think that that would be a continual. I didn't realize if you were eating at, like Christopher's,
Inside.
you could still, outside, you could still smoke.
yep.
I
yep.
didn't realize that. I figured if you were in there seating, that is not that's not,
No.
okay.
And it's amazing, every place you look that's started no smoking, the maintenance costs drop dramatically from not just the smoke, the butts, but also the smoke itself. It's really fascinating. I mean, I was an air conditioning repairman when I was in the Air Force, and we would change filters out, and especially like the barber shop where everybody was smoking. Good Lord, you had to go to the hospital after you changed the filters out.
Well, they used to have smoking rooms, remember, in different places?
High
Hospitals
school.
and different things like that, the
Yeah.
schools. And I was part of a crew that went in to dismantle some of it, and it was filthy.
Oh, yeah. Scrape it off with your fingers.
Chuck, school board report?
School board report, the only thing I have is that there's some controversy surrounding the trail that we'd like to get straightened out about where it's going to be located, or as whether it's going to be on Penn's property or on our property. So
Didn't you have a meeting with those guys recently?
didn't go too well.
No?
That's what I'm reporting
Okay.
back on. Didn't go well at all. They were very frustrated with the answers that they were getting.
Who's they?
The school board.
The facilities
The
committee? or
Facilities
the-
committee, they
Yeah.
met on Tuesday. And I don't know where I was at, or what meeting I was at, where there was a discussion with the people from Penn. I may have been watching it on television, where they had said they would be willing to put the trail on their side. Do you
Well,
remember any of that?
they've already committed to a trail over there
Mm-hmm,
that's not part of the TAP trail.
okay, maybe
So
that's.
I
the
don't know
issue.
that they've been approached yet,
Mhm.
but our point was that would actually be a better place for it.
Right, and I think that's the confusion.
Yeah.
The school board felt that the commitment by Penn was not to use our area
No.
on that side, but that was mentioned someplace.
Oh, it was probably mentioned as somebody's idea.
Yeah, it was mentioned because
But
of our.
right now, see, the TAP grant
Right, right.
shows the trail on the school district property. So we've asked Peter
Mhm.
to go back to the state ask them whether it would alter the grant if we moved it to the other side of the street.
Yeah, just that piece of the trail,
Yeah.
not the one that goes along the pike.
No, no,
Right,
just-
just that other
yeah,
piece.
yeah.
Well, that's what we need to have clarity on, because they're not happy.
I'll take that back.
And they kept talking to the guy from Simone,
Yeah.
you know,
Peter.
and they did not feel he was giving the answers like.
Well, that's because he's not getting a lot of leadership.
Okay, so we need that because our school board have not signed off
Oh, yeah.
on it yet, okay? And the way it went, they won't. And that could cause a lot of problems.
Oh,
We had said at the beginning.
it could
that we were
cost
going-
us $1 million.
Yes, we had said at the beginning that we were going to cooperate. Right now. it
Because
doesn't
we
look
would
as-
lose the grant.
Right, so it's in jeopardy, so that somebody needs to address that. Okay, that's all I got.
I'll kick it up a notch.
Kick it up a notch, yep, because I like to see it go through.
I think we should also say it's not a trail, it's actually a sidewalk.
Well, it's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Pieces of it are a trail, pieces of it are on the street.
Right,
So they're what they're share roads they
right,
call
sure.
them. And,
For better bike access.
yes, and some of them are sidewalks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
The
and some
part-
of it's pretty wide.
Yeah, the part on Lancaster Avenue is pretty
Yeah,
wide.
Yeah,
Typically, I think it was 8 foot almost every place that
Yeah.
we had the room.
right.
And it's
and-
helping connect people to public transportation.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's,
Mhm.
you know, it's
And it was
good
gonna
all
be-
around.
It's going to be part of our cross-country course. We're going to do some improvements on our cross-country. I mean, it can be very beneficial,
Yeah.
and we're looking to make it happen, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we have to work together to make it happen,
Yeah.
so.
Especially
And
if there
that-
are-
That's what I think our function is here, at least my function is here as a school board member on the Parks and Rec, would be to bring the ideas to here, and then from here they would go up to there.
Right.
And then hopefully we'll be able to accomplish something.
Okay, thank you. We do not have any old business. Is there any new business to discuss? Any other comments from anybody?
I have a new business thing. The kiosks that have been built at the Willows, there's 2 of them, one at the Skunk Hollow Garden, one right by the bridge as
The
well.
White Bridge.
Excuse me?
The White Bridge.
Yeah. Is there any, I'd like to see one up at the parking lot entrance to the trails of the Willows. I don't know, I gather Dan Meyer was the one who, no, was it, who, or was it Eric Jansen who built these?
No. Kids Scouts built.
Well, the one
But
at the
it's
White
his
Bridge
design.
was purchased.
Okay,
The one at the Skunk Hollow was a scouting project. The
Yes.
one that's in
Oh.
Ithan Park.
And the
Right.
one,
Scouting.
the one
Was
by
a
the
scouting.
White Bridge is a scouting project.
No,
So
that was-
yes, it is, because I know the kid
Did they
who's been
change it?
building it. Yes. Mark Hirschler's the person to talk
But-
to.
okay,
They're-
And get
they're
us
looking
another
for
Eagle
projects.
Scout project.
For Eagle Scouts.
okay. So I'll talk to them.
So it would be, you should talk to Tammy about that, because she coordinates with the scouting.
I would like to see one up there, and the
It'd be great.
Conservancy could help do, we have some funds, and we would like to put something up there to be able to have a board for people.
So people know how to walk the trails.
Well, there's a nice trail map over at the Skunk Hollow entrance, right? That was
It's hard to read.
because of the colors.
The trail markings in Skunk Hollow is another level of, that's
Needs to be
lacking.
done.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
that
the-
to me, that's not really the most important.
Speaking of that Skunk Hollow and trails, we did approve the
Repair
repair of the bridge.
for $60,000?
Yeah, something like that. Because they have to,
$60,000.
they literally have to shore it up to take the stress off it so they can redo the handrail where it's down and twisted. So that was approved.
Do you remember when
Guys,
it was
anything else from
held
Greg?
on that cable to a tree?
All right, we're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's so it doesn't wash away.
You did good.
Well, I know, but the tree was going to wash it.
You play basketball?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I had brothers, Mike and Sean. Sean, yeah.
Let me just say.
Sean and Mike. Doodle Brian, yeah.
It turned into.
That's fine. He's getting
I
can't just sit here and play. I told him no, he's like, "Okay, whatever." So, but I mean, like, you know, if there's a spot, he can do it. He plays baseball, so yeah.
And they get introduced.
Just let me know. I'll let you know about Saturday morning.
Yeah, I've seen
Right
it.
up until the
It
end,
was
he was
about
a
8
coordinator.
foot. Anybody
Took his
over
leg
about
off.
35 was kids were
Hospital,
tall.
Pennsylvania Hospital, Philadelphia.
So Bob
Next morning, he gets up and he hops up to the nurse's station.
the township
He says,
to
"You
print
can't
it
come up here." I
and
said,
distribute
"Yeah, I
it.
just-
The next thing I heard, and I've been,
Can't get out of
I've
bed.
been
My brother had his
told.
leg taken off.
Anyway,
So the next morning, he hopped up to the nurse's station because he wanted to ask him a question. And they said, you can't come up here. I said, "Sure I can."
Words.
Just got his hand. They said, what happens if you fall? I'm not going to fall, you know. But he was just such an
Sarah,
expert.
you can't make
Just somebody just kept going through.
suggestions.
This didn't work, that didn't work, this did, well, let's try this. They put him
Bob
in a
phoned,
coma.
hold on,
Medical and
Bob
glucose
phoned to me,
They said, you got
face
a
to face.
50-50 chance of coming out. I said,
Sarah,
sounds pretty good to me.
He had a
Took
skid
him up,
design.
put him in,
We'll
brought him
print it
for first
on
treatment.
bright paper.
Unfortunately,
And the
that
trash
didn't
man
work.
go to every
But he
house
was just say, okay, now
over a
what?
week. The next thing I heard, they were looking for
What
spots.
we really are gonna do is end up planning.
I don't know.
His wife, I'm with his wife.
Roberta's not speaking to
To
me.
address this real
I'm a little
diplomatically
resentful
because
that she's told me.
he's looking at me,
Because
his
I got
wife's
to
here,
go to
he's looking at me and she goes, you know, I had to take out your whole lung.
Which
And he's
I
looking at,
initiated,
like right at me, I'm like,
she
I really
owns
want you to be diplomatic.
I hate to see your
I went to
bulldog.
Jesus, yes. But then he was saying, okay, now we're going to. And I think it's
Roberta
kind of like
found a
this.
lovely couple for
I can
me
share
to
your
stay.
frustration.
Now, how that gets you
You
to
put a
own
lot of time and
something.
effort and concern in it.
So, but
We
I'm,
said to Lisa, we just thought,
Katrina's working on the reset.
if you have
I am backing out.
let us know. and we'll-
Because
we'll be
I'm not
interested in
getting
double.
into this. Actually, my focus is
We just
now
wanna
on
have us, look
Sierra
ask
Club's
about
ready
dogs and
for
parks
100.
and, what
But
playground needs to be cleaned up
the
or
Lord is so
repaired or whatever.
dysfunctional.
Then tell us that's what you want us to do.
But we're gonna start a grassroots thing, which is what Katrina and I have done about recycling. All of a sudden, it's got
Resignations from this board.
appearing policy, and we were doing it
That Willis
to
thing
be
is doing enough to
practical.
do it. I resigned because people were still gonna associate us
Let me
with
tell
that,
you,
even though we didn't
it's so
recommend or recommend or
dysfunctional.
anything else.
You
There's
have
a long history of
an
Willis
hour.
without sit down and talk
Just
about
watch
it.
Willis.
I figured I'd catch up at some point.
Oh, yeah.
So,
It was a
we'll see
disgrace.
what happens.
I didn't even
I don't know.
go, just because I don't.
I think Alicia's pretty good,
It
actually.
makes me sick.
Well,
think
it makes
I'll
me
have
sick
to
too,
She has
but
an enormous amount. She's-
we have been going
It's
for
like she
20 years.
inherited,
It's a sign.
how many
they
people
want
are
to
doing it
find
for?
out.
Six new children.
Right. And she's
The
good.
sheriff
She's
has
She's new.
openly threatened
Quick
me.
question for you, so,
Wait, he's.
are you familiar with this new policy, trying to get through for all the booster
Oh,
clubs
no.
at the high school?
Yeah.
And in the whole schools and stuff?
And I said something one night
Just
that
for
he
enough,
didn't
my
like, and
wife's
he
the
threatened.
president of the boys basketball.
Okay.
And Colarulo,
I read the
Colarulo
policy
hates
that
the
they sent out.
conservatives.
Somebody obviously just downloaded it from
And
Canada somewhere.
Colarulo
I don't
comes
think
around
anybody
in the back
would
and
put a
says
lot
to
of
me,
time
"Are
into
you all right?"
I haven't even seen it yet.
Wants me to
And
escort
threatened
you.
me.
I mean, it's
And
like Elaine